It's no surprise, but money fights are listed as the number one cause of divorce currently in America. The tension and overwhelm surrounding money management is real. If you are a human with a pulse, especially if you are a married human, then you have felt that tension and you've cried those tears. And if you can get money management right, your marriage and your family are going to be, and for future generations, are going to be so much better off. So in this episode, we want to simplify money management by sharing the 3 things everyone should do with their money.
Welcome to the Family Goals Podcast. We're Graham and Shay Cochran, and we believe that your family can do things differently. The payoffs are worth it, and the little things can have a huge impact. We're pumped to have you, and hopefully you've been enjoying these initial episodes. If this is your first one, then let me be the first to say welcome, and also I have some homework for you. If you like this episode, after you finish it, you need to let us know. Otherwise, we're not going to do anymore.
We won't know unless you tell us.
So it's real simple. We need crowd response, crowd feedback. If you're enjoying these episodes and you're like, yes, Graham and Shay, we want more of the Family Goals Podcast. We want it to continue because our vision is to do it every week, but we won't do it until we hear from you. It's very simple. Just go to Apple Podcasts if you're listening to it there and rate and review the show. Same thing on Spotify if you listen there, or if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel there. Let us know that you like the show and you want us to continue.
That's all. Thanks.
Yeah. Now back to the show. So money. So a quick story. Shay and I got married young. I was 22. You were
13.
Wow.
No.
She was a child bride. Please do not report this. Oh my gosh, she was
21.
21 and 22.
Fresh out of college. 2 weeks, 21, actually.
You were still in college when we got married.
Oh, yeah,
you were in
that's
your
right.
final
We
semester.
got married over fall break.
So we were young, and it's just the way God had our story. Like, we met young. We met when we were 19 and 17. Like, just those were the odds. So we dated for 3+ years before we got married. So imagine a 22-year-old and a 21-year-old, and it finally, and I'm a musician and thinking about music, and Shay's
very lucrative career of a wannabe musician.
It didn't work out very well originally. I mean, it worked out better having a business related to music, but I woke up one day, and I don't remember when or what the moment was, but I remember thinking, I don't know anything about money.
It's probably that time our bank account hit 0.
That might have been
the
moment. No, I can tell you when it was. I was invited by one of my friends, and he was a professor of mine, to go hear Charles Stanley speak.
Yeah.
On the late Charles Stanley, Andy Stanley's father, great pastor and author and speaker. And so we drove up to D.C. We were in Virginia at the time, and we heard him speak. But Dave Ramsey was the opener. Mm-hmm. And I'd never heard of Dave Ramsey. He's a big financial author and radio show host and successful businessman, and he's been around for 30+ years. And so he's a Christian, and he's friends with Charles Stanley, and so Charles brought him on this tour to like open up and talk about money. They had a health guy. I remember there's a health guy that talked about health, and then Dave Ramsey was the money guy, and then Charles was talking about faith. It was a really cool little conference. And so there's this guy talking about money and he's
being debt-free, not using credit cards.
Well, and the thing he said that stuck with me that day was, when you graduate college, and we had just graduated college, the problem is you see your parents' standard of living.
Yeah.
And you see the kind of car they drive, the kind of TV they have, the kind of vacations they might take. And just subconsciously you assume you should have the same
that's
level
normal.
of car, level of TV, level of vacations. And the problem is that you can't afford them. And they're 30 years ahead of you in their career, so they've made some money, hopefully, to be able to do that. But we don't stop and think about it. And so we go into debt for those things. And when he was talking about, just like, it was the first time I thought about money. Like, and I was like, oh, crap. I don't know anything about money. And I got like nervous because we had just gotten married. Yeah. And I was like, this isn't just me.
Major.
This isn't just me living in an apartment with 3 other dudes, like, and I can just scrape by to pay my part of the rent and my food. And I was working at the GameStop in the mall selling video games, going to college. This is like me and my wife. Like, I got to figure this stuff out. And Shay was really sweet. She saw that Dave Ramsey had a book selling in the back of the thing after the talk, and she ended up ordering that book and got it for me for Christmas. So we really have Shay to thank for all of our financial well-being, because she bought me my first money book, and I started reading Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, which is a great classic read. And that just messed with me because it showed me two things. One, nobody taught me this in school.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
And our parents were wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
But they didn't necessarily teach us those principles.
Like they taught us a couple of things, but like it didn't come up.
Yeah.
It didn't come up that much. And if it did, Mom and Dad, I forget.
We
and I'm
weren't
sorry.
listening.
I wasn't listening. That was my fault if that was the case.
That might actually just be on us.
It might be on us. Swing and a miss on my part. But so why isn't anyone talking about this? Because it seemed so like powerful. Like we should all know this stuff. And then two, it was so encouraging for me, who was making $15 an hour with a college degree, by the way. So full-time, $30,000 a year working as an audio engineer at a software company. I was like, that's not a lot of money. It's okay. It's like entry-level college degree money. But when I read the power of if you manage your money, what little you have well, you can have an incredible financial legacy of peace and wealth and generosity and no stress. And I saw the math and I saw the strategies, and it gave someone like me hope. I was like, oh my gosh, you don't have to be a millionaire or have a trust fund or like make the next Apple or Google or Facebook to do well financially. Normal people are living great lives because of what they did, how they managed the money. Yeah. And so I'm setting this up to tell you, praise God, I was 22 and I read this, and it started me on the journey of, I want to learn everything about money. And I've probably read 100 books on personal finance or investing or tax or any of those things since then, because I'm a nerd and but it was so instructive and powerful. And so Shay and I, like, fast forward, we've done not everything right, but we've done a lot of things right from the beginning because we just got good counsel at a young age.
Do you remember what our first budget was?
$1,600 a month.
Crazy, right? And that we had that, thanks to Dave Ramsey, we learned how to budget that down to every single penny. If you, us in those days, if we found $1 on the road, and that was game changing.
We're like that kid from, what was it? I found $1, I got $1.
Yeah.
Whatever those kids were.
Sandlot?
It's not the Sandlot. It's the same time frame that the movie.
Goonies? I don't know.
Not the Goonies.
Little Rascals?
Little
Rascals. There we go.
We got it. Yeah. So what we want to do in this episode is like, that's where it started. For me, it was like hearing about something and finally someone making money sound approachable and like simple and empowering for someone like me who was scared of numbers, scared of math. I'm a musician. I'm a creative. I don't want to be the guy. I wanted to be super rich so I didn't have to think about money. That's was my strategy, and it didn't work out. And so if someone like me and Shay could like distill this stuff and figure it out and apply it, and it's benefited our lives so much. What we thought we could do in this episode, we can't talk about everything about money, but when you look at money, it boils down, like everything boils down to just three things. And so what we want to do is share what those three things are that you should be doing with your money, and then talk about the sort of limiting beliefs around them and how you can break those limiting beliefs and find success. So where do you want to go?
Well, I wanted to underscore one point real quick before we give the three things, is the snowball impact that this has had on our lives. Yeah. Because starting with that $1,600 budget, because we learned to live on a budget of $1,600 a month, not a week, guys, a month. Granted, this was...
How's that possible?
No, it was 18 years ago. We had a really low rent where we were living. Yeah. Rent wasn't high in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Anyway, $1,600. We learned to live on that amount of money by applying the principle of the three things that we're going to talk to you about today. And then when the other one of us had graduated, that was me, that graduated, got a real job, we were still able, instead of just increasing our living expenses, we saved almost my entire income. And so what happened was at the end of a very relatively short period of time, we had like $30,000 for a down payment. So when we bought our first house, here's where the snowball begins. When we bought our first house, we were able to put a $30,000 down payment, which was a substantial enough down payment to really make make our mortgage payment very reduced, which, I mean, all of that just like financially each of those decisions that started with knowing what to do with these three things, doing these three things with money early on, snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. When we sold that house, we got to take more money with us to put in our next house, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now 18 years later, we're still benefiting from the impact of that snowball. And these three things that we're going to talk to you about apply no matter how much money you have. These are three things that you need to be doing at all seasons of life, whether you are single or married, whether you have a family or don't have a family, whether you make $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year or $2 million a year. We want to be your friend. That sounds fun. These things apply. So you want me to lead in with those three things? Okay, the three things are you give, you save, and you spend.
All right, episode's done.
Let's
go get lunch.
That's no new news to anyone, really. Give, save, and spend. But the devil's in the details, of course. It's the nuances of how you go about, how you do it, why you do it that are so valuable.
So pump the brakes for a second. So the beautiful thing about this is if you think about it, outside of earning money, which we're assuming this is what do you do when you've earned money? So like the only things you can do with money after earning it are spend it, save it, or give it away.
Yeah.
Like, and then save, you can compartmentalize into saving or investing because they're the same concept, but investing is putting your savings to work so your money makes money for you, which
it's all really, setting aside money for the future.
Yeah, you really only have three choices. So if I gave you $50,000 a month, yay, yippee you. But what are you going to do with that money? You only can do three things. You can either blow it all, spend it. You could save it all, save it, or you could give it all, or a combination thereof. There's nothing else you can do with money other than burn it up if it's physical cash. But if I deposit into your account, it has to go somewhere, either in a savings account, or you hold on to it, you give it to somebody else so they can use it, or you spend it on something that you need or want. So when you think about it that way, that's all we're ever doing with money are those three things.
So, I mean, there's so many different directions we can go in. There are so many broken mindsets around each of these things. There's also so many assumptions about giving, saving, and spending. There's so many different approaches to this. So where do you want to jump in? I mean, we can talk about like starting with the limiting beliefs around each of those things.
Well, let me start with, let's start there. Yeah, let's start there.
So limiting beliefs around giving.
Okay, there's so many. And guys, I did a TED Talk last year called Why Givers Are Happier and Have Less Money Stress. So if you want to support me, just Google that or YouTube it, Graham Cochran TEDx Talk. There's so much science being done right now on the benefits to you, the giver, by giving. So we won't talk about it here, but like literally you will be a happier person if you give. So we could go that angle. Statistically, the science proves you are happier when you give versus like saving money or spending money. We think saving it, some people feel better when they save it. Some people feel better when they spend it. But punchline is you feel better when you give it, which is interesting. But I have talked to a lot of people, and my experience is that most people I talk to want to be generous. They love generous people. I think we all love generous people. The person that pays for your meal, that friend that always pays for your meal, or if you have a parent that like when they come into town when you're in college and they bring you all kinds of stuff, like we all love generosity. It's attractive, it's magnetic. And so I think we all want to be that person at some level, even the most selfish of us, because we're all selfish, at some level want to be the person that's paying for everyone, paying rounds of drinks at the bar or tipping the waiter. Like I think there's a part of you inside
wants to be that
person. The reality, the rubber meets the road though in reality, when it's your money and you have a choice and an opportunity to give, whether it's they spin the tablet around when you're paying for something. They're like, just some questions they want you to answer on the tablet.
We don't know what those questions are, but
we have no idea. But one of them might be, give me $1 million. It's like, no, you didn't do anything. You just swipe my card. Whether it's tipping like someone that actually gets service or giving to your church or synagogue or your favorite charity. Like we love Compassion International or Feeding Tampa Bay. We live here in Tampa, or Metropolitan Ministries, or whatever, or there's a hurricane, or there's earthquake, and you want to do disaster relief. We would all love to give, but we don't. And the reason why is because we feel like we won't have enough if we give. And so we're operating under the assumption that like there's some moment in the in time, and it's usually in the future.
Someday in the future.
Someday in the future, in this imaginary reality where we will.
When your income's just a little bit higher.
Yeah, when your income's higher, and you will feel like, I have enough extra to give.
It's just laying around, like Scrooge McDuck style.
And this is true not just for normal people. This is true for wealthy people. And we haven't even talked about this, but like in the last few years of our life, like God has really blessed our businesses, and like we've been able to make a lot more wealth. And so because of that, we have the amount of money we can give away, the numbers are higher. And I've been talking to organizations that we give to, and one of the organizations that we partner with, Compassion, we have a liaison there. And she was talking about, she said, Graham, you and Shay are like my youngest like clients.
Yeah.
She's like,
because we think about giving as something we'll do later when we're older, later when we have more money.
Well, yeah. And so I said, well, tell me about that. She's like, well, the people who give like at the level like you guys are giving, they're in their 60s and 70s and 80s. Now, part of it is because the amount of money that they're getting at that level is usually coming from people who have saved up a lot more. But I've talked to, whether it's a financial advisor or other people, when they look at the stats, they're like, even wealthy people who are wealthy in their 20s and 30s, like successful business owners, the strategy in their mind is, I'm going to hold on to this money, and then I'm going to either do a giving pledge, or I'll give it all away when I die.
Sure.
And when I get to this later season of life, then I'll start to give it away, because then I will know I've got enough for sure to last me till I die.
Yeah.
And so it's not just because I don't have enough, because I make a little money. It's even people with large amounts of wealth. It's the same thing. I'll give later, sometime in the future, when I feel like I'm in a better position to give.
Yeah. And so the painful truth is that generosity is like a position of your heart and a choice at any amount of money. And if you are not able to be generous with what you have today, you're not going to be able to be generous with what you have tomorrow. It just doesn't track out, because you're going to have the same fearful mindsets. You're going to have the same fear-based, selfish approach to like, well, let me make sure that there's enough for me. And how do I know that we'll be able to do what we want to do? Or what if something comes up? That's not going to go away. Again, your life, the more money you make, there's lifestyle creep, your expenses get higher, etc. So if you're not able to give with a heart of generosity and free generosity now, it's not just going to appear later in life when you make more money.
That's brilliant. I've heard it said that money amplifies who you are. And so I think, to your point, whatever you're doing with your money now, if you make more money or when you make more money, you're just going to do more of that.
Yeah.
So if you are high security, like, I love saving money, it makes me feel safe. When you make more, you're just going to want to save more of it.
You're going to feel like you need more of it to sustain your lifestyle.
That's me. I'm raising my hand. If you're a high spender, like spending makes you feel like, I've earned this money, I make good money, I want to be able to spend it to reward myself. That's true when you're spending $20, and then if you make more, it's going to still be true. And if you're generous, you'll be able to give more. We're not on a high horse here. We're just saying we've realized that like giving, if you're not doing it now, you're not going to do it later.
You're not going to do it later.
So that's one of the biggest limiting beliefs in life.
Also for discipline reasons. Like if you're not disciplined enough to come up with a percentage, adjust your budget accordingly, actually do the giving, like take the time to do it. If you're not going to be disciplined to do that now, you're not going to magically be disciplined to do it later. It's a decision. It's a position of your heart about money and toward others and the use of money. It's a value statement. So it's not going to just magically happen someday. You're going to have to make a decision now, and you have to make a decision later.
Giving isn't something you do, it's who you are. You get to choose to be a giver.
Yeah.
At
any level.
At any level. And that could be $5. Yeah. Like, this is not an amount. Like, nobody really cares about the amount. And this isn't about what anybody thinks. This is about you. Mm-hmm. If you want to be someone who gives, just decide today, I am a giver and I'm going to be someone who gives.
Yeah. So an example of application of that would just be decide on a certain percentage of your family income that you're going to give away, and decide where you're going to give it. Areas that are meaningful to you, you can make that decision as a family, you can make that decision as a couple, but decide we're going to give 2%, 5%, 10%. Our family over the years has tried to increase our giving every year with the goal of getting to 50% of our total revenue as a couple, total income given away. And that's where we're at now. It took a lot of years to get there, but it started with 5%. and then 6%, and then 7%, and then 8%. And each year, when we got to the end of the year, we would think through and pray through, like, how much are we going to try to give next year? Knowing that we wanted to become generous people. And the way that we would become generous people was by taking that initial step of being
Yeah.
a generous person. So
That's a good
it's going to
point.
be percentage based. If you don't make a lot of money, then it's just going to be a small percentage. If you make a lot of money, then it's going to be a larger amount of money, because you can keep the percentage the same, but the dollar amount is going to change. So just pick a percentage, decide as a family or as a couple where you're going to put it, and start doing it now. Don't wait until a magical date in the future that you're going to become a generous person.
Yeah, and last point that you bring up a good point. There's something psychologically called the extreme reach barrier, and this happens a lot when someone poses an idea to you, like, you know, you should start a business. You're like, yeah, I should start a business, but if I start a business, then I have to have business cards and I have to have a website, I have to have this, and you go to the extreme, and
Yeah.
you're like, I can't do all that right
Yeah.
now. So then you don't do anything.
Yeah.
The same with giving. When we say, pick a percentage and give or become a giver, like, I can't give 10% of my income away. Like some of the stats I pulled in my TED talk, like the 10% is a magical number for like maximum happiness, which is interesting. Or if you're a Christian or you're Jewish, like the tithe that we talk about, that people that I can't give 10% away, I can't give 50% away. No, we didn't say to do any of those things. You're going to the extreme to give yourself an excuse to not give. So don't let that stop you.
Yeah.
To Shay's point, start with 1% of your income.
Yeah.
And then use it like a thermostat where the temperature gets a little warmer, and you don't notice it. Because if you start to increase it up, all of a sudden you're like, wow, we're giving 5%. I haven't even felt the pinch. So just ease into it. And like, you can be a giver giving $5 a month. Like, you're a giver by that
And a
definition.
really fun, like, to tease out what that's looked like a little bit more for us. Within our giving, there are percentages of
Mhm.
amounts, the
Where
way
it
that we
goes.
use our giving, where it goes. So we have certain percents that go to certain organizations, local charities, global charities, church. There are a few different places, but then my favorite giving category is the undesignated giving category. And we had this even when we were broke as a joke,
Yep.
living on the $1,600 a month
Mhm.
income. We had a little bit of money, and at that time, it was probably $20 a month or something like that. There was some little percentage of our giving that went towards undesignated giving, meaning we would just wait for something fun to pop up. And that could look like you pay for the coffee for the person that's behind you at Starbucks. I don't know how you would actually do that. You wouldn't know their order, but
Yeah, you just say whatever their order is, I've paid for it.
oh, yeah. Yeah. So you could do that. I remember being a little kid and being in the car when we were on a family road trip.
Yeah.
A really little kid. We were road tripping to Florida, actually, of all places. And I remember we didn't have a lot of money growing up. I remember going through one of the toll booths, and the car in front of us had paid for our family. That was like the first time that I ever
still remember it.
saw that kind of like crazy. I mean, we're talking like a $2 toll. This is not a lot of money. But as a kid, knowing that like every $2 spent by my family was a big deal.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, it was so impactful. And like, we could never thank them. We would never know their
Yeah.
name. It was just so beautiful, the impact of that and how that shaped even me as a child and as a person. So
Wow.
it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but that undesignated giving. I remember one year we bought a family a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
One awesome year we were able to buy a family a used car
Yep.
because their car was no longer working. It was their only vehicle. I mean, there's just been, I don't know if there's other ones that come to mind for you,
We've
but
paid off people's college
we
loans.
paid off college loans. I
We've
mean,
funded adoptions.
and again,
But
that's like at a big
those are
scale.
big, but a lot of times the most fun are the small ones. Like we were at and we're so trained now. We were at a grocery store in Puerto Rico. We were on vacation last summer, and there was a couple in front of us when we were trying to check out, and their cards weren't working. I don't know if they were declined or it just wasn't working, but they were having trouble, and I didn't speak Spanish, so I couldn't hear what they were saying. But it was pretty obvious, like they couldn't do
Something
it.
wasn't working.
And it was going on so long where it kind of got awkward, and you felt bad for them because they felt bad. They're not trying to hold anybody
Yeah.
up. And so I'm poor me. I don't speak any Spanish. So I'm like, hey, I'm waving my credit card. I'm like,
I've got this.
I'll pay for theirs. And
No one
Shay would have
understood.
done the exact same thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
even if it was $20, like we're so wired of like,
It's so fun.
it's so fun. It is the most fun you'll ever have with
It's
money.
so fun.
And
Oh yeah. Tell me what we did with the kids.
oh, so
last
like,
year.
dude, yeah, last year when gas and groceries were just going through the roof, when
Bonkers.
inflation was like hitting at its high point, like
Yeah.
in 2022, and you're like, dude, what is happening? And people were struggling. We're like, let's just go get a bunch of like gas gift cards and grocery gift cards. And let's just bundle them together and write a little note and just anonymously drop them in mailboxes around
Yeah.
the neighborhood.
And we let the kids pick the houses.
just
So we
drive
just
around.
like drove through our neighborhood and let the kids like, okay, that one. Okay, that
Yeah.
one. So much fun. Like the whole point of this is not the specifics of what we've done. It's not the amount that you can give. Hopefully, this just puts a little bit of a spark under you that giving is so fun. Scientifically, it's fun, like the things that happen in your brain, but also just experientially.
Yeah.
There's just nothing like the joy of being able to take care of a need for someone, or just be a blessing to someone, or do something fun, provide a fun experience or that kind of thing. So decide to become a giver today, and you will be a giver for your lifetime.
I love it.
Hey, I hope that you're loving this episode. But listen, what we really want to do is save you from one more boring night of tech gather time spent scrolling your phone side by side. We have a better idea. Okay, we've created 5 absolutely foolproof conversation prompts to help you connect with your spouse today.
Yeah, these are like literally fill in the blank, easy, simple questions, nothing heavy, nothing too serious. These are light and fun to do exactly what they say, to help you connect. So to get these free conversation prompts, just go to familygoalspodcast.com/connect. They're free, they're fun, use them today. Now, back to the episode.
So the second thing is save, right? So you always should be saving money, because there's a million things you can save for. We save for like dreams. You mentioned that we were talking about like dreams cost money. You want to know? She disagrees?
No. I was just going to say it's interesting that the same thing that people say about giving, like I'll give when I have more money, they say about saving. I would love to save. Everyone would say that they want to save.
I don't have any left over.
But I don't have enough money. I'll save someday. When I make a little bit more money, I'll be able to save for retirement. When I make a little bit more money, I'll be able to, have a little bit more of a cushion. Sorry. I just was like connecting that. It's like the same thing. We think like, oh, I definitely want to do that. No one has to be sold on saving, but they just assume I'll do it later. I certainly can't do it now.
Yeah. And that's not true. And it's actually it's the opposite. It's more important to save now, especially for your financial future. But whenever it is in your life, it's like it is a choice. Are you a saver or not? Are you someone who saves money or not? It's not what you're doing. It's who you are. People who save money tend to do better financially, even if it's $1. Sir Templeton, I think it's Isaac Templeton. I forget his first name. I'm blanking on it. He was one of the early financial guys in Franklin Templeton. The company is half named after him. He's just an incredible, generous man. He made billions of dollars and had a big financial company. He's one of those guys that was tithing his whole life, but he talks about how he started is he saved 50 cents. Or when he talked about saving, he's like, to build his wealth, he said, I saved 50 cents like a day or 50 cents a month or something way. But he's like, it was a small amount, but it's like, I knew I needed to become someone when the money came in. If I didn't save some of it, it was like, I knew I would never save any of it. So I had to like build that as like a part of what I do. So you're never going to make enough that you feel like you have plenty left over to save. Like, I don't know how to tell this to you, but it's very rare that's going to happen. So you choose to be a saver because there's so many things that we need to save for. There's your financial future, right? Like your retirement, like one day you won't want to work forever, or you won't be able to, or there's a lot of things you want to have more options. But there's even like your car is going to need new tires at some point. Like it's just a fact. No matter how nice your car is, tires wear out. You need oil
your
changes.
Clothes. Like some people are so like, I'm not going to set aside any money to buy new clothes or new shoes. 100% eventually your clothes are going to wear out.
Denial.
Your kids' clothes
That's
are
denial.
It's just denial.
It's not sexy or fun. Like when I think about saving, I want to think about saving for my dreams, which is where I was going, like that vacation I want to take. Dreams, you can have anything you want. They just cost money. But it's not that you have to like, one day I'll make enough money to afford a vacation. No, it's the people who save are able to. It's like anybody can afford whatever, but it's the savers that get there. But it's even the mundane things like my clothes wear out, oil change for my car.
You're going to need household repairs.
I love that Dave Ramsey always jokes like Christmas is not a surprise. It comes the same time every year. Like you got 12 months to
12
save.
whole months.
As we're taping this, it's Christmas season right now. And it's like, I just saw the stats that 25% of Americans are still paying off the Christmas from last year on their credit cards.
Dude, Christmas has gotten so freaking expensive.
It's gotten expensive. Don't get me, we can't even get started. But my point is, you want to understand what's coming down the pipe that I might want to save for or need to save for. And then I love it. There's a whole idea of like, You don't have to, I think it's Morgan Housel who wrote The Psychology of Money says, you don't have to have a reason to save. You can save for nothing at all because life is so unexpected. It's just smart to have some money set aside that's not for anything. We call this an emergency fund, but like intentionally knowing something that I can't predict might happen that will cost money and be frustrating and take me by surprise. Wouldn't it be nice if I had a little bit of extra money, even if it was $100 set aside just for that?
I remember feeling this, like feeling the relief from money saved for the unexpected. Early on in marriage, we had just barely started Dave Ramsey. And my upbringing, my parents both worked really hard. We were fine, but money was always a little bit tight, like probably typical American family, right? Like we always had enough, but there was always a little bit of money tension and money fear as a child, just not knowing if we'd have enough. And so I grew up in a very typical home where something like a car breaking down or something going wrong in the home was a big deal, right? It was an unexpected expense. It caused a lot of tension in the marriage. Very normal stuff, right? Like that narrative is so true for so many families where they're just like one little disaster away from a lot of stress and tension because they just don't have $200 laying around to fix the carburetor or whatever that would cost to fix that. It's unexpected. And so it's a big deal. It causes fights and tension. I remember that from my upbringing. And so the first time as a married couple, I remember I was in the car. We had to take one of our cars, or did we only have one car? We only had one car. So then I was in someone's car because I remember being in a car. And I remember the conversation with you because there had been a car repair that had come up and we knew it was going to be, I wouldn't know what it was going to cost, but I was already very on edge about like my immediate reaction was left over from my childhood of like, there's not going to be enough money for this. Like this is going to be stressful. And I remember Graham calling and saying it's going to cost $98. I don't know why I remember that, but it's going to cost $98. And I'm just immediately like my palms are sweating, like my shoulders are tense. Like I'm just like, oh, this is going to be like, this is one of the first major things. Like we make $1,600 a month. We don't have money for this. And I remember you saying, oh no, babe, it's already taken care of. And I was like, what do you mean it's already taken care of? And you're like, well, yeah, we've been setting aside like $5 a month, or whatever it was for car repairs. And this is exactly what that money's for. And so it's paid for. It's not affecting our monthly budget. Like we've already been setting aside for this. And I can literally remember what it felt like to just be like, wow, this is different. So it's not a point of tension. We're not going to argue about it. Like it's taken care of. And we were barely making any money. This had nothing to do with how much money we were making. Yeah. But we had just learned Dave Ramsey. We had set up all of our different, 20 different savings categories, even though it was like a pathetic $2 going here and $5 going here.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, because I love that. I think that's such a powerful tool. And the way that we set that up was really beneficial for us then. And it's something that 18 years later and a very different financial outlook later, we still apply. So let's talk about savings categories just like from a very practical level.
Some people call this sinking funds. And it's basically the concept of envelopes that you would put cash in with different categories, but digitized. And all it is multiple savings accounts with different nicknames for different intentions. And it's all based off of your budget, which we're going to assume you have one for the purpose of today's episode.
We won't talk about the B word.
We don't have time. It's okay. But this is the beauty of think about any category of things that aren't every month expenses. So it's not like your rent that you have to pay every month or groceries, but probably within the next 12 months, sometime in the year, you're going to have to at least once spend money on this category.
Birthday gifts.
Christmas gifts. Car repair or oil changes.
Home repair.
Like replacing out a piece of furniture might happen, like clothing. These are some classic examples. And then
you could include travel. You can include, we probably had 20 categories.
Our dream accounts, like we want to take a trip each year. And so we're not going to magically have $1,000 for the airfare and the hotel next year. So, okay, how can we divide that by 12? Okay, so $80, $83 a month. And so what you do is so simple, but it's amazing when I talk about it with people. They're like, wow, I never thought about it. We have a bank account and we like to use Capital One 360. Other banks might do this too, only because you can create one login with them. And once you're in your account, they allow you to open up unlimited sub accounts
And title them
whatever you want with no minimum. So
Yeah.
even if it gets down to $0 in it, you're not paying for it,
Yeah.
which makes this very easy. And they all can be automated to your main checking account. So paycheck comes in, you look at your budget, and you decide as a couple and a family how much you want to be setting aside every month for new kids' clothes because they grow out of them so fast, or Christmas. We look at Christmas to say, how much do we need Christmas time and how much can we afford at the end of the year? If we had this amount, we could kind of get what we need for Christmas. Can we divide that by 12? Does it fit in our budget? And if so, we create a one-time automation to take the $80 a month or $20 a month, and it'll automatically peel it every month into the account with the nickname. And so when Shay was talking about the car repair, we have been doing this. The great thing is you make the decision once, and if you don't need the money, if you don't have any car repairs to do, it's just piling up, which is great. And then when you have a car repair, you're like, oh crap, it's going to be $300 for a couple of tires or a tire or whatever it is these days. You look in your account and go, oh, I've got $472 in the car repair. There's money for that.
Yeah.
It's like you've been dutifully saving for it, but you didn't because you just automated the decision once.
So is there a basic percentage that you should allocate to the give is a wild card, but like saving and spending, and that kind of goes a little bit into budgeting, but what percentage of your total take home should you be saving versus spending?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of rules here. My favorite would be, I don't want to get into it because I think like the problem is when we get into percentages, people go, I can't do that. I can't do that. So like I would say.
But it is helpful though for them to know whether their lifestyle is just beyond their means.
So can I give you a rule that I literally came up with for my daughters? And so like secret project, I'm working on a book for my girls, a money book that I want them to have. I don't even care if anybody reads it or if it's published.
If we die, here's what you do with money.
It's an instruction manual that their future husbands must read if they want to marry my daughters.
We did say we would literally make that
it will not be
required
long.
reading.
It will be mercifully short and to the point, and it'll be like, just do these things.
And we could like tuck a $20 bill in it when we do them.
So one of the first chapters is going to be the 10-20-30 rule. And so the 10-20-30 rule, I've read all the books.
I've literally never heard you say
because I haven't shared it
this.
with anybody. This is real time.
Are we even married?
Because I wasn't going to talk about this, but like this is a perfect time to talk about 10-20-30 rule. I was like, how can I come up with one rule that if you were to follow this rule, pretty much everything else in your finances would work itself out? And I was like, how could I do that? And so I looked at all the percentages and all the things that I think about and I like to do. What could a normal person like work towards? It's doable. It's going to be hard depending on where you live. 10-20-30 rule. It's very simple. You give 10% of your income away. This is something that's going to be a non-negotiable for our daughters. Is like, don't wait one day to start giving 10%. Assume we're Christians, so we believe that God owns the first. He owns all of it. And you're returning to him the first 10%. We won't get into that theologically because you may not agree, and that's fine. But like, my daughters are going to know that tithing, the 10% is important. So giving 10%, save 20%. And so that's going to be a combination of in long-term investments, short-term savings. And then your housing should be no more than 30% of your income.
So that's not total budget or total spending.
No.
That's your housing.
This is just because this is where when you get to budgeting,
most people go wrong.
Exactly.
I mean, the household's the biggest expense.
What are the big nuggets? Like if you get your housing right, that's the number one thing.
Like we don't need to like nitpick over Starbucks orders. Like
drink all the Starbucks you want or smoke all the cigarettes you want. I don't care. Like
don't do that, please.
The point isn't what you spend your money on because everyone's different. The point is how much you spend on some of the things that make the biggest difference. So if you aren't saving, then it's a problem. And if you spend more than 30% on your mortgage or your rent, like it's a problem. And a lot of people do. Yeah. But it's worth like, what do I have to do? Those are harder decisions to change. But if you get that right.
Okay. So as a baseline, let's say they're operating with, they calculate what together as a couple, 20% of their take home.
Yep.
And say we're going to allocate that to savings. And would that cover all savings?
All savings.
Medical savings, like all of it, everything.
If you can do more than that, great, of course.
Yeah.
But I would say half of that, 10%, should be long-term investing. This is your retirement account, your 401k, real estate.
Long-term savings you're not going to tap into that
that's
year.
Like that's your wealth building. But then the other 10% is like the Christmas gifts, the medical expenses, which is another category. Like you need to go to the doctor.
You're
What-
going to have to.
if you need to pay a copay for an eye exam, like where's that money coming from? So set aside a few bucks every month. So that's your answer.
And I just want to keep underscoring this same principle. Even if it's $2 a month is all you can put in that account, it is still worth doing because it's the discipline and the decision, the habit of being a saver and putting some little amount of money into all of those categories and adjusting. It's the discipline and decision to adjust the rest of your lifestyle around those savings.
Dude, can we get deep for a second? We do what we believe we are or who we believe we are. Okay. So like if we say, I am a saver, if we can in good conscience say, I am a saver because $2 a month is going into a savings account, that is a fact.
Yeah.
You are a saver. Then you can with full, and you could say with full honesty, I am a saver. We become and we do more of what we believe we are. So if we think we're a saver, we're going to save more. If we believe we're a giver, because we do give, we're going to give more. If we believe that we don't have enough money to save and we're not a saver, we're not going to save. It's this reinforcing mechanism. So it's really like a life hack of saying, even if it's $5 to give away, $5 to save, I can in good conscience say, I'm a giver and I'm a saver. And so then you become more of that. And so it's, to your point, it really is a habit, but it's like, who do you want to become? Just start, just put something in it, even if it's $1. And that once that's in place, then you're not going to want to go against who you are. Like it's going to be really hard to unwind that. Well, we've got to save something because we do save stuff as opposed to starting one day in the future.
And then we got to move on or we'll get stuck here all day. But there should be no unexpected expenses. I mean, yes, we get it. There are unexpected expenses, but really there really shouldn't be any unexpected expenses. Like, something eventually is going to happen to your car. Something eventually is going to happen medically. You're going to have to replace something. Something in your home is going to get broken. Christmas is coming. Like, there really shouldn't be any unexpected expenses because you already have a little bit of money that you're like, sometime in the future, I'm going to need to pay a copay. And so I'm already going to put aside $5 a month, or $100 a month or whatever it is in that account. There are no unexpected expenses. We all have lived enough life to know what's coming down the pipeline. Yeah. And every time something comes up, so when we were newly married, there would be things that come up. We're like, oh, we didn't think about that. Yeah. Gifts. Yeah. Gifts for friends. Like, that gets expensive when you have kids and they have friends and they're going to birthday parties all the time. That gets expensive. No one ever thinks about that. So as you do more life together and as you sit down at the end of the month and you go over your budget and what worked and what didn't work, then you say, oh, yeah, I think we need to add that category. Yeah. There needs to be a taco category. Tacos are going to happen.
Tacos. That's a t-shirt. Tacos will happen.
Tacos are going to happen.
Okay, well, this is great. We'll move on to the spend category. And this won't take a lot of time because everybody spends. So I don't have to convince you to spend money because everyone's spending because we have to. But there is, depending on your personality, there's two limiting beliefs that we kind of stumble across that we think we see. One is, I'm afraid to spend and drain my savings. Mm-hmm. If you're a high security person and you're high on, like, there's people can look like misers and they're not trying to be Scrooge.
They're actually just really fearful.
They're really afraid.
Yeah.
And they feel safe when there's money in the savings account. So this is like a small word of warning. If you're married, if your spouse tends to not, if they tend to be cheap, you're using negative language, they're cheap, they're like a miser, they won't spend money. Maybe there's a money story from their childhood you need to unpack a little bit about. They had fearful, like they weren't gonna have enough. And so if they finally come into money, even if it's just a stable job and it's not
that
a lot of
fear is not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, well, they're gonna hold on tightly to that like life raft because we all feel better with money in our savings account than if we don't have it. So if you're a saver, that's gonna be them. So just unpack that. And if you are the saver and you're afraid to drain your savings, some savings are just to keep you feeling safe. Like, we have money that's for the emergency fund. Like, we don't touch it unless there's an emergency. It's the break glass in case of emergency. You normally don't want to break that glass. You do feel better knowing it's there. Mm-hmm. But the savings accounts we've been talking about, you save so that you can spend later. You know the spending is going to come. So you're just intentionally setting aside the money to spend it.
Something that I've always loved that you've said within our marriage, the typical tendency is an expense comes up that you would rather not have had, right? We're having to replace out our hot water heater. The air conditioning in your house breaks. and you have to spend the money on it. And you spiral into this like frustrating, exhausting, like, oh, like I don't want to have to spend my money on that. And you'll always say to us, like, that's what money's for. Like, that's what money's for. It's for spending. Sometimes on things that you get to choose and want to choose. Sometimes just for things that have to do with having the privilege of being in a house that has air conditioning. It's all spending. Spending is one of the things you do with money. So you can save so much of your energy and angst if you adopt that mindset that like, hey, you're going to have to spend money on these things. But if you have the money set aside, it's not going to be a problem. But money is to be spent. The same thing is applied to the people that have a hard time spending on lavish things. A fun dinner out, a full bottle of wine, like a really cool experience, getting to go to go to the theater. We're going to go to New York and take the kids to a Broadway show. Some people have a really hard time with that. I'd rather save it.
How can I justify spending that money?
Like it's so lavish, it's just gone. People have like all kinds of judgments about money. And the thing is like, but that's what money is for. Like that's one of the things, that's one of the three things that money is for. It's for spending. It's for enjoying.
Yeah.
Not just enjoying.
Yeah.
But it is for enjoying. Money is meant to be spent.
And let me give you some freedom to that point. Like spending money on anything, none of it's a waste if it's what you value. And you can afford it. So we're not talking about going into debt for it, but like don't judge other people's spending habits and don't judge your own. If it's what you value, spend it. A good example.
If you value sneakers,
spend money on sneakers.
Spend money on sneakers.
My parents are a good example. Like we learned early on, like, wow, they spend way more as a couple without kids in the house on their grocery budget than we did with kids in the house. And they would spend lavishly on a lot of things. Like, Mom, if you're listening, like y'all like the avocados, and Dad, you'll get your cigars and like the wine. And I remember at one point I was like, wow, we spend way more than
Aren't we all supposed to be spending the same amount of money on groceries?
I had this broken mindset of like, that's wasteful spending. Why would they spend so much? And then it dawned on me one day, like, they don't like going to restaurants. They go one time a year on their anniversary. And I was like, oh, dang. We like going to restaurants, and they don't
spend a crap ton of money at restaurants.
So, and I realized,
and your parents would probably be like, "What?
Why are you spending that? You spend how much on Uber Eats fees?" No, but like they don't value restaurants. I was like,
they value a delicious home cooked meal,
and it's values. It's value based spending, and you and your spouse and your family get to decide what you as a family value.
Absolutely.
And that's the freedoms. Like you can spend your money on whatever you want. You can't just have everything you want or all the things. You just pick what you value and spend your money on that. So money is meant to be spent. It's not a waste, whether it's something that you like coffee out of the store or to the point about the car repairs. Like, I wish I didn't have to spend money on the stupid repair. That's what the money is for. So we've spent way more time on the limiting beliefs than I thought we would. 2 quick points I want to make before we wrap this up. One is just this blanket point. You should be doing all three at all times in your life.
Yeah.
You should be spending, saving, and giving every season of your life. You never do 2 out of the 3 or 1 out of the 3. You are always doing 3 out of 3. The amounts are going to change. When we moved to Florida and I lost my job and we were on food stamps or SNAP, that's what they call it now, for 18 months, like our income was almost non-existent.
Yeah.
But we just reduced the amounts of everything. We just spent a lot less.
And by that time, we knew how to manage down to the penny, which really served us. Because, we knew where things needed to go. We knew where we could cut and where we couldn't cut.
Yep. So you can see how the habits were already there. Yeah. We just reduced the amounts, but we didn't close savings accounts. We didn't drain. I mean, we had to spend a lot of savings.
We did.
First.
We had to drain our savings, but we had savings. We had an emergency fund.
We burned through it, but that's what it was there for. Yeah. But then when we were out, we're like, we're still going to save some money. So maybe I can't max out my retirement account, but I can still put $10 in something.
Money. Fun money.
Yep.
Funny money. Fun money is a good example of that, where it's like, it doesn't matter how bad things are, financial outlook for you, you both are going to need a little bit of fun money, even if that's only $10 a month or $20 a month.
So I can go see a movie.
Just let off the steam so you don't just go on a home goods shopping spree one day out of anger that you're so limited.
No, that's a good point. We got to do a whole episode on fun money. It's a brilliant concept. But you want to be doing all three at all times. So build the habit in now wherever you are. Like I guarantee you're likely not where you want to be financially in terms of either how much you're making or how you're managing the money. That's okay. But you know what's great is that today, like in an instant, you can become a giver and a saver and not a judgmental spender. In one day, you can become those things and start those things, and then you can fluctuate as your income goes up.
And if you're listening to this and you are a Christian and a believer, you know the biblical principle of if you're faithful with the little, then he knows he can entrust you with more. And we've seen that
100%.
absolutely be true in our lives. So don't despise the small beginnings financially. Be faithful with the money that you're given. And that's how you know, and God knows as a believer, that I'm going to give more to that child of mine because that child knows how to take care of it. They're being a really faithful, good steward of it.
Yeah, so good. And then the final thing I want to leave you with is that you can teach this to your kids.
Yeah.
When you realize that money, as complicated as the financial industry wants it to be made for you or to make you think it is, when you realize that it's actually just spending, saving, and giving and just moving those things around, it makes it a lot easier to teach your kids how to think about money. And so this is something we've been doing for years where I have a friend, Scott Donnell, who has some great material on like how to teach kids to manage money. He has a great company and an app called Gravy Stack, which you should check out. And we can link to that in the show notes as well. It's a financial app and banking app for kids, but teaching them how to earn money, create value. And then he doesn't like the word allowance. He wants you to pay your kids for doing stuff around the house, the stuff that's not expected of them, like they should make their bed, that's expected of them. But however you decide to pay your kids, you want to pay them something for doing something.
You want them to have earned it.
Because you want to teach them how to earn money, which is creating value.
And that money is attached to work.
Money is attached. That's because Dave Ramsey always says kids need to learn, where does money come from? It comes from work. And I would say not necessarily. Money comes from creating value. So work is one way to create value. Having intellectual property, like having a business, providing a service, another way. So money comes from creating value in the marketplace, but how to teach your kids to manage money, you want them to have money to manage so that you can teach them give, save, spend. So we would get like 3 envelopes. Instead of the bank accounts, we would get 3 envelopes. And if they earned $3 a week or $3 a month, we'd say, hey, here's your money.
I mean, kind of mean from a percentage perspective.
Oh, it's total mean, but it's simple math.
But it was simple math for them as little kids. Like if you got $3, then $1 went and give, $1 went and save, $1 went and spend. And the same thing has applied as they've gotten older. You know, we don't make them split it evenly across,
like
but as little kids,
giving,
they split it evenly across. They didn't really need to save for anything anyway.
But
their life is
think
awesome.
about this. If every week that you're paying them or however you do it, you're handing them physical money and they're having to physically put some in give, some in save, some in spend. Like they're being brainwashed for the better. What are the 3 things we do with money? Like my kids could tell you, give, save, spend, give, save, spend.
Yeah, they could do this
give,
podcast.
Save, spend. I know this, Dad. It's so boring. But they know. And then now we can have conversations about like, how much should you save? How much should you give?
What do you want to give to?
What do you want to give to? Oh, you've got some money saved up in your save account. Do you want to buy something? Oh, I guess I could because that's not my spend. I already spent my spend on like candy, but I could go buy an American Girl doll because I haven't spent any of that money.
Yeah.
So it's a simple, easy way to start teaching your kids about money. If you realize, all money management is giving, saving, spending.
Yeah.
They can learn that too. Any parting words that we missed on the 3 things everyone should do with money?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I think what I'll circle back to is like, if this is helpful for you, share it with a friend. Like this is the stuff that no one's learning in high school. No one's learning in college. Some people are learning from their parents and some aren't. And then couples are coming together and there's so much tension. There's probably no one that wouldn't benefit from hearing this. So if this is helpful, just do us a favor and share it with someone. That would be such a gift to us to be helpful to as many people as we can with such a simple concept.
Yeah. And so to finish it off, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for that chicken salad tartine that we got from Gray's. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Sorry. Chicken salad on a waffle. I should clarify. Chicken salad with like an avocado mayo on a waffle. And it's just glorious. I'm so grateful for that today.
And on that note, I'm grateful for the tater tots that I had with my
We'll go with the
egg
food theme.
and turkey sausage bowl. That
I'm
was
grateful
pretty.
for you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Love you, babe.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and be sure to review and rate and like and subscribe and tell us that you
if
want
you hate
more.
it. If you hate it, we won't.
No,
do it.
I don't want to hear it. If you hate it, just keep your mouth shut. I don't want to hear that. But if you like it, tell us. Otherwise, we won't keep doing them. So you've got to, you driving this train. You own it. Let us know. We'll keep making more.
Sounds good.
See you on another episode real soon.